as far as which social media channel, you really need to know who your ideal target market is in order to determine that. Where are they hanging out? And yes, you can go to your competitors and follow their followers, because then you're sharing both the same target market. But at the end of the day, you want to have conversations, meaningful conversations with people, and offer something of value.
And welcome back for another episode of the Succeed Against the Odds. Today my guest is Susan Friesen of eVision Media. Welcome, Susan.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I am pleased that you're here because you're an expert in marketing. And would you mind sharing with our audience what aspect of marketing is? Marketing such a huge umbrella. It's such a big segment that a lot of people are overwhelmed by it when they're not really familiar with it. Some people think that marketing is just sales or it's just advertising, and I see even with my own clients that they're really not clear about what marketing is. And maybe you can share your perspective on marketing and which aspect of marketing you help your clients with.
Well, that's a big loaded question because marketing is such a big umbrella. But at the end of the day, marketing is making sure your ideal target market knows about you, knows that you are the best solution for them, and you making sure you have the right message that resonates with them so that they will do business with you. And so marketing does encompass advertising and all these other kinds of things, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like a PR campaign of making sure the public, and more specifically your target market, knows about you, knows what you do, and knows that you're the best choice for them. And it can include so many different avenues, social media marketing, Google online marketing, Facebook ads, social media, I already said that, newsletters, podcasting. What you're doing is literally a form of marketing. And what's really interesting is I was just talking to somebody this morning about how marketing has changed. Back in the olden days, back when we were young, marketing was really a push marketing model. You had your TV ads and your newspaper ads and your radio spots, and you were just kind of pushing yourself out there as much as you could. And that was more of an advertising model. But nowadays, because of social media, marketing has really transformed into a pull marketing method, relationship marketing, where we need to build that know, like, and trust factor with our potential clients so that they can trust us, that we know what we're doing, and build up that relationship with them first for them in order to say, yes, I'm willing to work with you or willing to purchase your product or service. So.
It is a big question because it is a big segment that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So what aspect of marketing do you address? Because it's impossible to say, oh, I do it all, right? Like none of us do it all.
Yeah.
So how do you specifically help your clients? Like what aspect of it?
Well, one thing that I have an advantage of is I have a team. So I have a team of SEO experts and copywriters and Facebook marketers and things like that. So I personally am not an expert in everything, but I know how well to delegate. But we specifically focus on online marketing, which is the social media, Facebook ads, and doing social media campaigns, Google search engine optimization, and Google ads, Bing ads, those kinds of ads, and relationship marketing, newsletters, blog articles, content marketing, that kind of thing. Blogging, basically those are the bigger arenas that we work within.
That's a big arena.
Yeah.
Because like you said, a lot of the marketing has shifted online. Most people don't watch TV anymore.
Right.
There's very few people,
and they either zip through the commercials or they're on their phone during the commercials.
Exactly. Skip over. So what, if I may ask, how did you get to do what you do? Like, what's the story behind that? Did you just wake up one day and say, I'm just going to have a marketing company or agency.
Oh, wouldn't
How-
that be nice?
Yeah, how did you get
Yeah,
to, like,
just-
what inspired you to start your business and get into the specific area?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting story. I'm what you would call an accidental entrepreneur. In theory, for this particular business, I am a lifelong entrepreneur. Back when I was 10, I was selling gift greeting cards door to door. So, it was in my blood. But back in the late 90s, we had our old desktop computer. I barely
Those big
knew. Yeah, those big monsters.
monitors.
Didn't know much about it. I couldn't figure out how to send out an email. It was so foreign. But I knew. I looked at that sucker and I said, that's the future. I know it. And I was a very creative person. I used to have a craft business. I used to do faux finish painting. So I was very creative. And I said, there's something I can do on that thing. I know it. I didn't know what. I didn't know what it was capable of. But that started me on a journey of discovering, okay, what can I do with this thing? And I considered 3D animation, but I'm not really an artist per se. And long story short, I ended up enrolling into the Vancouver Film School in Vancouver, and I learned web development and graphic design, audio, video, putting on productions, and it was a very highly concentrated 10-month program. And at the end of that, I'm going, okay, now what? Because all I knew was that I wanted to learn. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. But it just so happens that the Vancouver Sun and Province were looking for a new assistant webmaster, and they asked me to apply, and I got the job. So I just kind of dove right into corporate, and within a couple of months, I was escalated to being the webmaster, because the webmaster at the time really was more of a creative person. He didn't like being the webmaster, so I came along and took over his job so he could focus on creative work. And I did that for quite a while, and then things changed and evolved, and I ended up going back to school to get a business degree in computer information systems. And still, I had not set my sights on actually starting my own business. I thought, okay, I'll be a chief information officer at a corporation or something like that. Go work at BC Tel or something. And so while I was taking my business degree, I was just doing general networking things, getting out of the house and meeting people. And they learned that I did web design. Now, remember, this is like late 90s, late 90s, early 2000. And so back then, websites were pretty generic still, very low key. But anyway, I said, oh yeah, sure, I can do that for you. And I would whip up a website, and they got a steal of a deal because I really wasn't building a business. I was just doing it as a favor. And over the period of getting my degree, which took about 4 years or so, all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, I'm my own CIO and CEO and CXO. And I just kept going. And there was no need for me to actually find a new job because the referrals just kept coming in. I was one happy client after another, kept telling their friends about me, and next thing I knew, a business was born. And it's kind of ironic because all this time I never even had my own website. I was so busy I didn't even have my own website up.
So it kind of happened organically.
It happened very organically.
So this is so cool because it happened because you were doing something you loved.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes it happens so that people, there's that famous saying, follow your passion and your money the money will follow.
Right.
But that's not always the case,
Right.
because some people follow passion and know nothing about business.
Right.
And
Yes.
the two they're not integrated. I think
Yes.
what may have helped you, I don't know,
Yeah.
please clarify if that's true. What helped you, actually? I should ask you. I shouldn't even try to guess. I'm going to ask you, what do you think gave you, other than the fact that people were referring you and they were happy with with the results of what you were providing, what would you say was a major factor in helping you become successful beside that?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was because I was not desperate. I was not attending these networking events with the intention of getting a client. I was there with the intention of helping and answering questions and just being of service. Just, I'm here. If you need me, I'm, great. If not, no problem. I did not have any dollar signs in my eyes. And so people didn't feel threatened. They didn't feel put off by me pushing myself on anybody. And so that, coupled with, I was getting a business degree. So obviously business was something that I understood and was learning very well. I had already run a couple of businesses before that, low-key, country crafts kind of a business. But still, I understood the concepts of marketing even back before computers were invented.
So you were doing...
Well, not invented. I'm not that old, but before I had one.
Before you had one. So I don't know if you were conscious of this or not at the time, but based on what you said, this seems that you were doing pull marketing and networking events.
Without even
So you were building those relationships without the end goal, I need to have that client, which is something that I've discussed with other guests in this show, where that sometimes is so, like, we're so desperate to make that sale that please take my business card, please buy my stuff.
Right.
And it is such a turnoff. And even if you're not saying that, it's just your whole body language transmits that. So the fact that you didn't have that, you were not concerned about getting the sale, you were not concerned about getting the clients, you were more concerned about helping. It totally invited people in, like you said, to make them feel threatened. That is so beautiful.
Yeah, and you're right. I didn't realize that until you just said it, that I literally intuitively understood the concept of relationship marketing long before it became a term. Yeah.
That's beautiful. See? That's what you need to do. That's how you get people in. All right, so before we started the recording, and I asked you if you had a story.
Yeah.
And you said, yes, I have two, actually, that I could share.
Which
one do you want? And I said, what are the stories? And you gave me a little glimpse. I don't know the full stories.
Yeah.
So I would like you to share both. And you said, let's start with the one you mentioned. You had identity theft. What happened there?
Well, that was right when I had transitioned out of my corporate job and went back to school. Part of what happened in that process was that I was a victim of identity theft. Back then, in the early 2000s, identity theft was a really unknown thing. It was brand new. And at the time, we were told that it was one of the biggest cases they had ever seen. And it was huge. I won't go into any details, but it resulted in me basically going to rock bottom. We were destitute financially. We were living off of credit cards. We were in like $40,000 debt in credit cards. We were 2 payments in arrears of our mortgage. We were literally days away from going into foreclosure. And if it wasn't for my, bless his heart, my dad helping us pay that mortgage payment, we would have lost the house. And through this time, I was going back to school, so I did have some student loans that we were living off of as well. And I really got quite depressed too. Gained a ton of weight very quickly. I remember sleeping until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then playing Tetris until 3 or 4 in the morning.
That happens when you're depressed.
Yeah.
You kind of want to escape and shut yourself down.
Yeah, you just exist, and you just feel so helpless and hopeless. And one day I just woke up and I said, wait a second, there's something I need to do here. I don't know exactly what it was, but just something flipped, and something said, okay, pick yourself up. We gotta figure out a solution here. And I think that's when to be honest, I'm not sure if that's when I signed up for school. It might be. I was in that depressive mode first, and then I signed up for school when I realized I need to do something about this. And you just take it one day at a time, and that's when things started working in my favor. That's when I started getting out of the house and doing the networking, and getting these odd jobs, and that
just
helped.
Moving and doing something.
Just doing something, moving forward, and feeling accomplished. And I know that you know about the sacred gifts, and I have the sacred gift of knowledge, which is helpful because somebody with that gift loves to learn. I live off of learning, and I live off of being able to share that knowledge with people. And so I capitalized on that and sunk my teeth into my business degrees studies, graduated with an A+. I got a Governor General's Award for the highest grade in my class. And it just inspired me to get myself out of that funk and move on. Okay, we have this situation happening around us that we have no control over. What do I have control over? What do I want? And that's when I, just started working at focusing on my goal. At the time, my goal was to, the chief information officer or whatever, but that evolved and ended up doing quite well. And ever since then, year after year, we were at 20-30% growth every year for our business. And that was like 15, 16 years ago.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And so the other story was later on, after all of that got resolved and we got ourselves out of debt. And
may I ask? Sorry, just
sure.
Sorry to interrupt you, but how long does it take before you realized your identity had been stolen?
It was, if I had been more alert and aware of possibilities, I could have picked up the signs a little bit quicker, but it was quite quickly. It was like within a few months, and all of a sudden we realized, wait a second, there's something fishy going on here. So it was a situation that isn't typical that what we hear about today. It was pretty primitive back then, but it was major, and the authorities got involved fairly quickly, and we were just
glad that's the past.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yes. Very much so past. And I don't think about it very often. I only thought about it because you had asked me. Okay, yeah, that's something I definitely overcame.
It's a big challenge. It is a big challenge. I had identity theft, but it was pinned within 24 hours. I realized it immediately when it happened. So it's not as drastic. It was not a big. The financial loss was very little. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, no, a lot of damage had been done.
But the grief, there's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I even legally, I can't really get into a lot of details, but yeah, it was a pretty major deal at the time for sure.
So let's get back to your second story.
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to share about the second story was, it's one thing about overcoming financial problems and picking yourself up and saying, okay, what can we do about this? But the other thing is the mental stuff that goes on in our heads, right? Especially as women entrepreneurs, we tend to have a lot of self-doubt. And that's what spurns my wanting to learn, is I'm, always wondering, okay, what don't I know yet? What do I need to learn yet? And I realized that, quite a while ago that, and I don't run on those juices anymore, but I did before. And things shifted for me as far as empowering myself and understanding the importance of personal branding and how we come across. Because when we don't feel good about ourselves, or we're running on so low self-esteem, that also gets projected on people, and people will kind of go, well, do I really want to do business with somebody like that? And we were laughing earlier about not putting on makeup. Well, I mean, I would rarely put on makeup at any time, and I was quite a bit heavier then. I was like 90 pounds heavier. Doing my hair was a pain in the butt. I just really didn't practice self-care at all. And then one day I was invited by a photographer to be her model, Tanine Tweel, out in Mission. She wanted me to be her model, and I'm going, seriously? Why on earth would you want me to be your model? And she was teaming up with Judy, and Judy does makeup, and so they have this Shine Portraits photography makeup session that they do. And I was kicking and screaming. I go, come on, you've got to be kidding. There's got to be so many other people that you could be asking. But they begged me, and I gave in. And that literally transformed how I looked at myself. After I saw the after photos of that photo shoot, I thought, holy cow, this is not how I see myself at all. And it was the beginning of a transformation of me kind of incrementally understanding, that self-empowerment and how powerful it really is. I mean, that's kind of like one of those words that we hear a lot, but it truly is powerful when we start believing in ourselves and understanding that we do have an impact on other people, that we're not as invisible as we think we are, and anonymous. And so within, from that photo shoot to 3 years later, I had dropped 90 pounds. I had gained quite a bit more exposure. I was doing videos like this online instead of just doing voiceovers because I was hiding behind the camera. And business continues to explode, and I get to have opportunities like this to have interviews with people. So it just naturally evolves and builds the more you believe in yourself.
That is so cool. So if you're not feeling comfortable with yourself, go do a photo shoot.
Go, absolutely. I highly recommend it. The people who say, oh no, I don't take pictures, well, you're the best person to go and get a photo shoot done, because those photographers, they know. They put you in these pencil poses that make you look like, you feel like you're very uncomfortable, but it's incredible how beautiful the photos come out. And I highly encourage everybody to get a photo shoot.
Because you're being seen from someone else's eyes.
Yes. Yeah, and they know how to move the chin and, you know, all that stuff, so that there's, you know, the best angles that are for your face.
So taking care of your mindset, crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
For any business, really.
It is, yeah.
I'm probably one of the biggest advocates of that,
that
topic.
Yeah.
If you don't have positive mindset, especially about about yourself, it's not going to be easy. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say it's not impossible, but it's going to be extremely challenging to move forward, right?
Yeah, you're fighting against yourself, and even like it's not as if the road is 100% smooth. Like the life of an entrepreneur does have its dips and valleys and mountains.
It's life.
It's
whether it's business or not, it's life. That is how it's meant to be. As far as I'm concerned, I think that it'd be boring. I think it would be boring. Imagine if every day was the same and nothing ever happened.
Yeah, you know, exactly. And so
you can't even be always happy.
You can't. It doesn't work. And when stuff happens, it's how you respond to that stuff that makes or breaks your success.
Exactly.
You can have your moment of crying and pissed off and throw something or whatever you need to do to vent. Have that moment, and then say, okay, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to overcome this? What's my next step? You know, what do I want to achieve here, and build yourself back up. And what I find so fascinating is that when stuff like that does happen, and you know, we consciously make that turnaround, it's incredible what kind of doors of opportunity open up as soon as that happens. Like it happens every single time.
I say it happens every day. The opportunities are. It's funny because as I was driving here today, that is exact. I have a recording. I can even play for you later. And it's a recording of myself just to remind myself to talk about this. And it's totally about opportunities and how many opportunities are right in front of us, and we don't recognize them because we're distracted by everything else, and we don't see it as an opportunity. Right. We have all this.
Too focused on the negative energy that's going on. Yeah.
So so we're talking the same language here.
Talking the same language.
And that's what's made you such a successful entrepreneur. And, you know, and you have your agency, and now you help entrepreneurs with the marketing and the online marketing. So what would you say to someone who's either starting off or has already been in business but doesn't really know much about the whole online world? Because it is such an overwhelming world. It's just the online. Like we said, marketing is big. And now we just say, you know, focusing just on the online part. So many people go, I don't even know what social media to get into. And we know that depending on what kind of customer you work with, different social media is better than another one. But what would you say to someone who's starting out and who's completely overwhelmed? Let's just say they already picked their social platform and they know that. What would you advise them to do so that, you know, first few things that they can do so they don't feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, and that's a big problem. And one of the reasons why it's so overwhelming is that as a new entrepreneur, we tend to feel like we need to know everything. And we start to sign up for every single free gift, every single webinar, and all of a sudden there's 50 different people we're hearing advice from.
Download addicts, the free download
addicts, the free programs, everything is free because as a new entrepreneur, there's never any money. Although that's one of my pieces of advice is to make sure you have a budget. You know, it is a business. This isn't a hobby. And if you want to run a hobby, go ahead and do all that free stuff. But if you really truly want to run a business, be prepared to invest in a business. that part of running a business has not changed from 50 years ago. You still need to have capital.
You said the right word, invest. And I think what happens is a lot of people who are starting out or are in business that are still small, they haven't really expanded to a certain level, where they look at every penny and they go, I can't afford it right now. And they look at it as a cost, versus an investment, not realizing that putting that $1 or $2 or $3 or 10 or 100 or 1,000, whatever it is going to come back.
Yeah.
If they put it in the right place.
A lot quicker, too.
Exactly. Yeah, I know about this.
Yes.
I know about this one personal. Because I've done that too. I've been there too, where, you know, like when I first started out, I didn't have any money, but I ended up, and nobody showed up, right? Nobody came.
Yeah.
And then I had to make that initial investment to actually make things to get that traction.
Right.
So it is an investment, not an expense.
Not an expense.
And it's hard. It's hard to take that first to go, what if it doesn't come back, right? Yeah. So there's always that fear. Yeah. But hiring somebody who's an expert, that's where the strategy comes in, so that money does come back.
Yeah, it does come back. Yeah, and social media to me is a long-term strategy, and so the investment on social media would be to either hire or take a course to learn how to be strategic with your social media efforts. There's a lot of people wasting their time on there, and so that would be one of those investments. But I think a primary investment would be to invest in your business, either in a coach, somebody who can walk them through, like what you do, walk them through the process. Okay, this is what you need, instead of wasting so much time on trial and error. And then also invest in having somebody do the marketing for you and your branding, your website, all of that, because there's so many, sorry to say, rinky-dink, amateurish looking websites out there. And it doesn't work. You're not going to have somebody come to your website. You've got 5 seconds to make an impression on that person. 5 seconds. And if your website looks homemade, amateurish, gaudy, all of the above, you really think somebody's going to invest in you?
Can I share something?
Sure.
When it comes to websites, for me, it's 2 seconds.
2 seconds?
2 seconds. If I don't like how it looks, I'm not there any more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's that professional presentation.
For me. Anyway,
well, 5 seconds,
sure
okay.
There are probably more than me out there, right? So if it doesn't look at boom,
me too. I'm so the same. Like if I go to a website, like even if it's an accountant or something, and I go and it's like, oh my God, this was done back in 1999. Boom, out of there. Like, how can they possibly generate my trust when they know so little about business and marketing and how to present themselves in a professional brand? And so to me, that's a big investment. And of course, that's my business too, right? So of course, I'm going to be a proponent of that. But I think there's a couple of prongs of people that you need. Somebody who can be a business coach and help you make the right decisions, and somebody help you with the marketing and the branding.
The actual tangible stuff that
needs to be done, instead of you trying to learn it all yourself.
You can't learn it all yourself.
And how many times have you found there is somebody who is like a health coach or some kind of service industry? They've invested so much money in so many marketing programs, and the next thing you know, they're now a marketing expert, and that's their business. And so when you think about it, okay, so if you know so much about marketing, why didn't you make that other business work? Why did you have to switch over to become a marketing expert? And and that is like, it doesn't make sense to me. So instead of spending so much money on learning somebody else's expertise, focus on what your core competency is and outsource the other stuff.
And put that money towards that.
And focus on what you can do and what you have control over and what you know really well.
Okay, so let's say someone watching this or listening to this saying, okay, that's all nice, but right now I really, really don't have the budget.
Yeah.
Like my budget is not there,
yeah.
and I really have to start making money before I can invest in someone, because that happens. Like I said, when I started out, I didn't have any money at all. I ended up maxing my credit card, but
I was bankrupt. Yeah.
So there's hope. You can start with zero, right?
Yeah,
and
you can.
What kind of suggestions and tips can you give as far as the relationship building online? Like what's a good tactic? Is it to go, because I've heard different things. I've heard things like, oh, go in someone else's pages and like what they post, and then get into groups where you have people that do similar businesses as yours, or go into groups or support groups. What is your suggestion? How much should you really be online yourself to create that communication, and where exactly should you be within your social platform?
That is, that's a very good question, and the answer is it all depends. I guess maybe because of how I started, I'm old school a little bit, but I think you should always start your business in your own backyard and get out there and meet the people in your own backyard.
So face to face.
Face to face, volunteer, offer free services for free in exchange for testimonials, build up your repertoire that way, and get to know people in your local sphere of influence. Ask them for referrals and build out locally first. Get yourself known at a local level. That should be your primary focus. I'm not saying instead of, but that's where your major focus should be. Get out away from the computer and get out there in the community. And there's tons of networking events. And it doesn't have to be your typical business networking event. It can be a book club. Like if you find out that your target market are book lovers, then join a book club and get to know people that way. Develop relationships with people. You don't have to go with the intention of shoving out business cards. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just a matter of getting yourself in front of people, getting to know them. Years ago, I was a Mary Kay consultant, and Mary Kay would teach us all to treat everybody as if they had a Post-it note on their forehead that says, "Make me feel special." And I've lived with that ever since. Always treat somebody that you meet as if you are so interested in them and what their story is. Get to know them, and just things will evolve into how you can also help them and offer them something of value, and you develop that relationship that way. So part two to that is taking that same premise and bringing it into the social media sphere. As far as which social media channel, you really need to know who your ideal target market is in order to determine that. Where are they hanging out? And yes, you can go to your competitors and follow their followers, because then you're sharing both the same target market. But at the end of the day, you want to have conversations, meaningful conversations with people, and offer something of value. And your expertise will be showcased just automatically. It'll happen, organically that way, instead of pushing your business card on somebody, or when you're on social media, pushing yourself on people. Hey, I've got this product. I've got, buy this, buy this. People don't like that. They're repelled by that kind of thing. So all of the things that you listed are all viable options. There is no one perfect strategy. I think people get really overwhelmed with all of those different options. You kind of need to find the one that is best for you and your comfort zone. There's a lot of introverts who, it's really uncomfortable for them to even log into Facebook, let alone, be this outgoing, gregarious, person. And you don't have to be that. You want to be yourself and start where it's comfortable for you. And just have that mindset of, how can I help somebody today? How can I make somebody feel special? And just grow organically from that. And don't worry about all the rules and regulations and the 50,000 things that people are telling you that you should be doing. Because there are 50,000 things. Think small. Start small, and then organically it'll build up from there.
So would you say, because I know a few entrepreneurs that their business is 100% online.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even see people. They have products. Everything is just online.
Yeah.
Would you suggest they would go networking as well, like face to face?
Sure, why not? Why not? I think a lot of us tend to hide behind our computer, but that doesn't mean we should be hiding behind our computer. If you're running a business, do everything you can to be promoting that business. Get involved in the Chamber of Commerce, volunteer, do whatever you can. I did a lot of work for nonprofits when I first started off too. I was the webmaster for a couple of nonprofits for free, and it helped me build up my skill, but it also exposed me to their network, and I would get, business out of
I'm
that
glad
way.
you brought that up, because there are a lot of people say, well, charge what you're worth, so they feel like they should not be doing anything for free.
Mm.
And I just want to point something out here, because it's such an important point, where sometimes we do need to give out for free in exchange for that visibility.
Absolutely.
And I mean, my background, I don't know if you know, but like years ago, I used to perform. And in the performing world, there's a lot of people that expect you to do it for free or for very little. So it has gotten a lot of people in that world where they're bitter.
Yeah.
Because they feel undervalued and not appreciated for all the work that goes behind that 3-5 minute performance,
Right.
or 10, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is.
Yes.
And because of that, there's been so much discussion on over, you should always charge what you're worth, which I totally believe, like you should charge what you're worth. I say for every client that says I can't afford you, there are 3 more that will pay you more, right, than what you ask for. So I am totally on that. But then you're giving a good example when, because it has to be strategic of when
Your
you
choice.
do this. Yes, it has to be your choice to actually position yourself in a way that you're offering, so that even though you're giving and you're not necessarily going, buy my stuff, you're making yourself accessible and known, so that you can be reached at.
It's a win-win situation, and yeah, I totally agree. You do need to have boundaries. I was just talking to a client this morning who was struggling with the boundaries. There's somebody who just kept wanting something for free, and I go, you need to stop that. You can't be giving for free out of obligation or guilt or whatever it is that you think that you should be giving for free. There's boundaries are definitely important to say, okay, I would be more than happy to help you. This is my fee. When do you want to have your first session? If you're in a coaching environment, but I'm talking more about being in control of picking and choosing where you're going to spend your time, and understanding that there is going to be an exchange of value. There, of course, need to value you and what you bring to the table, and their gratitude will come back to you tenfold.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. Like there's so many little nuggets there throughout your story, and how you went from just sharing your passion and just growing organically and into a business, from corporate to a business, and giving your services for free, but at the same time creating the visibility and a name for yourself. Now grown into a full agency, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, other than just don't give up. And even if you are playing Tetris until 4 in the morning, sleeping until 3.
Don't till 4 in the morning. Well, you can, because we do have to go through that phase sometimes. So we do need. I think we have. It's a process.
It's a process.
Don't stay in there.
Well, that's what my point was. Put that visualize that big stop
Make
sign.
It short term.
Do it for one night.
Exactly.
And,
say enough.
And say enough, and then. And to quote Dana Smithers, who is a law of attraction empowerment coach, ask yourself, what do you want? And then your brain will automatically start to think about, okay, what do I want? I know I don't want this. I know I don't want this situation. What do I want? And the laws of attraction will start to feed to you what you need to do in order to create that.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
So if people want to find more about you, what's your website? How can they reach you? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, my website is evisionmedia.ca, and I do have a free report for ultimate guide on your website. So kind of like almost a checklist on what you need to know about having a proper website. And in that, you also sign up for my weekly newsletter. So every Tuesday morning, I send out a newsletter specific for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I have articles and a weekly video e-tip talking about strategic marketing, how to build your business online and organically too, all kinds of topics.
And this is free.
Free.
Free. So make sure to go onto the website.
Yes.
and get all this free stuff and sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Very generous.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, small business owners. We've prepared a transformational event for you. The Magnificent You Women's Conference is designed to support you in your business growth journey. Most conferences focus on content and not much action. This conference will give you content from 10 amazing local and international speakers, but also place great emphasis on actions to be taken after the conference. We want you to ignite that one thing that will change everything. Excited? Get your tickets today.